why don't we go ahead and get started? Do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself?
Chris, thanks for having me here. It's interesting that you started your question that way because we just finished up our skill development series here at Batesville High School with that being the question that we said that was the ultimate objective of our kids answering is it's the way we start every interview. And so I am a principal at Batesville High School, a father of two daughters, a senior and a sophomore. I like to take on challenges. Those types of things motivate me to do things differently than we've done in the past. I'm an avid sports enthusiast and a basketball coach at heart, but really I found a calling to be the principal of Batesville High School here in Batesville, Indiana. I operate based upon my beliefs and a very standard practice of core principles and values. I'm a theoretical person. I like to learn. I like to learn about different things and what makes the most sense now that can transfer into different settings. And so those are things that we want our kids to learn about themselves.
How do you make education relevant and engaging to your students?
We're still trying to figure that out. And this is one method to do it is trying to find methods and strategies to say this action that we're doing right now links to something that gives you an opportunity or gives you a chance to have success. I think what is interesting about our program is we don't grade it, which is a complete mindset shift. Our whole skill development series is not for a grade, but can you explain you? Can you learn about you? And what does that really mean? What does a growth mindset mean? And how does that evolve? And how does that apply to you today? And then as you transition from us in high school to the professional realm or whatever that might be, how can you have direct application of these skills that we're teaching?
How did you get involved in education?
So I'm from Indiana, right? I wanted to be a basketball coach. That's what I wanted to do. And I had the pleasure to start at Batesville High School and work here as a government teacher, proving that we oftentimes learn from the concept of mimicking or by example. I didn't really know what I wanted to teach, so I just was my favorite teacher in high school was a guy by the name of John Goodwin. We called him Goody. He was a family friend, and so he taught government and he taught U.S. history and he taught econ, so I might as well too. And I had to evolve to my own style. I did that as a basketball coach and did it in the classroom. And before I knew what the creative process was, it really resonated with me. And as I started to build in my own career at Batesville High School, required me to do some things like define really how I wanted to be as a classroom teacher and then think about it. I did some ideas, became clear that fit my style.
Can you tell us a bit about your students?
The number one thing I'll say to our students will meet expectations wherever we set them. You set the expectations high, our kids will meet them. You set them low, our kids will meet those two. And if you set them somewhere in between or don't have any expectations, they'll meet those two. We want to set high expectations for our kids. From a demographic standpoint, we're in rural southeastern Indiana. We actually identify with the Cincinnati market. We have a heavy manufacturing, heavy healthcare. We have a growing logistics hub here. Agriculture, we have two international companies that are headquartered here. And then we have evolving community partnerships. In this small little rural community in Southeast Indiana, we've got a lot of different factors in our demographics, and it is a very supportive community of the school system. The people here will talk about the school system as one of the primary, if not the primary recruiting tool. They simply expect one thing from us is to produce and continue to produce a quality education environment. At the same time, they want to support a growing school system that produces quality outcomes for their kids.
So, what is most important for kids to be prepared for the future?
I think, and one of the reasons why we're part of this, and we both believe this, is it's a skill-based society. Oftentimes, we are very much in the theory phase here, and the question that people ask all the time is, "When am I ever going to use this?" And sometimes we don't, as educators, don't answer it. The practicing of these skills, and those skills can be employability skills, they can be durable skills or human skills. We call them soft skills. The only way you develop those is you got to practice them, right? And they got to be durable enough to sustain over generations. It doesn't mean that we have abandoned all forms of the academic knowledge. We still exist as a primary resource to acquire academic knowledge. But we also want to make sure that when we talk about preparing our kids, that we talk a lot about confidence, that we can build confidence in them, or we give them opportunities for small wins, that we are authentic with them. The time, and we all appreciate this with our own time, is relevancy. Is what we're doing relevant to them because they're going to have to make decisions. Lifelong learning, it can't just be a tagline. And so we're going to continue to learn things and with the realization that every time we learn something and we look to grow, failure is a part of it, which is going to require resiliency. And if you said to ask me at one point, where are kids lacking today? How resilient are we? When we fail or We try a new skill. We're not very good at it. Do we quit or do we keep getting incrementally better? And when we can practice resiliency and we can require some resiliency, we watch our kids in these opportunities go through this process with experiences. We should very much make sure that we guarantee there's a process for them over the course of high school that leads to experiences,
Mhm.
and then their outcomes should be generated by them, whatever that might be. And we are fully supportive of that outcome if that's what the student wants to do.
What role does skills line play in the development of these durable human skills as we see it in this age of AI and automation?
Yeah. So when we talk about a kid being able to learn about who they are, what we sometimes forget is all of this is foreign to kids. So a kid can walk through our hallways with a lot of confidence because they go to class, the bell rings, they go to another class, and school looks a lot of the same. You let a kid walk into our community college down the road and take class there, a kid walks into a place of business to do a mentorship on the first day, you'll see where they lack confidence. Hey, my supervisor gave me 4 tasks and I don't know where to start. So we use prioritization and skills line, the prioritization process, the skills line of when you get all these tasks, what should you do? When we look through the concept of feedback loops, one thing we don't do a great job with our own students is kids turn stuff in, we grade and we move on. We've got to get better at it. We are getting better at using skills lines concept of feedback, of this feedback loop of turn in, revise, accepting feedback. Very difficult to do. Feedback's not personal, but when we're accepting feedback, yeah, okay, take all the personal pieces out of it. How does my presentation get better? We've got tremendous stories in my mentorship class I'm leading, where the only way that you can fail is if your third rendition of your presentation looks like your second one. That's it.
I
And
love
the first one to the second one
that.
to the third one all had student and teacher feedback, and they just keep getting better and better over time. Completely foreign concept to a kid. Right. And so we've got to make that more consistent and more viable. Skills line has embedded processes in there that we can pick and choose from. Not all of it applies as think of in the old days of the textbooks. We didn't read every chapter in the textbook. We pick and chose what sections we want to do. Same with skills line. And some of it fits better in other places. We're figuring out where it fits best.
You, Andy, really pushed our thinking around bringing skills line to teachers first before implementing with students in the classroom. How do you think about developing teachers to adapt to the future?
Our profession, as I'm part of it, and remain a huge proponent of public good, I have complete confidence in saying this, that we are a very fixed mindset profession. As I met with a group of community partners today from with our education foundation, school in itself doesn't look a whole lot different than it did 4 years ago. The processes and the format. And Chris, I don't know that's ever going to change in any real way that we're going to experience. Knowing that's not going to change, it's somewhat ironic at times where we're charged with using a quote of preparing kids for the real world. And I say this just for myself. Other than the first 5 years of my life, I've never been in the real world. I've been in education my entire life. So that can lead to a very fixed mindset of how we go about our day here. Although we're very fortunate to recruit a lot of our kids back into the teaching profession, not all of them are going to come here. So when we wanted to start with the teachers, we just asked for people to volunteer. Who wants to go through this? So just under half of my staff said, I'm willing to give it a try. And we talked about concepts and we've all sat through the professional development trainings. We've all sat through the programs. This program comes and we do this and the next program. We always want the kids to do it. How about we go through some of this first? Because the best form of learning is mimicking. So we need to mimic some of the things we're asking our kids to do. And through that, we are attempting, and this is a slow burn of changing some mindsets of teachers in that we have to be adaptable to our group that is sitting in our classrooms or involved in our classrooms, or in some cases, learning off site every day. And how do we better facilitate that classroom piece? Now, that takes time, right? And we have a statement around here that we use that we give ourselves permission to not be very good at any new skill. Now, we'll continue to get better, right? So this is something we got to continue to mimic with kids. We talk about a growth mindset. We got to be willing to grow a little bit. That doesn't just mean learn more and pass it on to kids. It means that we're willing to fail a little bit and sometimes fail authentically and let our people see us fail, but yet how we learn from it and how we respond to it.
How do you see skills line changing education or helping educators to change?
It's a micro lesson taught. And I think this is one of the secret sauces that you have is you provide the question first and then the justification for the answer second. And so we have to give our best thought in what we think of it. Then you provide research-based answers and short snippets. And I can drill down into very quick skills as far as I want to teach specifically in that class or that lesson that day.
So it's in a sense the accessibility
It's the
and the
accessibility and format.
right.
So if you think about it in a traditional setting, I might teach for 5 days and test on the sixth day. And then I ask questions and you give me answers. This is asking the question first. And then all of a sudden I'm giving my best response or what I think the best response is. And then the research based response is below, supported with different studies. And then me as a teacher, and I've taught this way, then we talk about why that's the best answer, and sometimes we disagree with it. And I can understand some of the disagreement, but if we want to teach our kids to think, then all of a sudden we've created a dialogue here based upon the skills line curriculum that we probably aren't going to have if I'm just up there saying, this is how you should respond in this scenario.
What are your thoughts on bringing generative artificial intelligence to students?
We cannot and we will not be afraid of it. With that said, we do have to teach the suggested usage. So schools are going to be different than the private sector, different than the personal life. For me, it's a brainstorming tool that absent revision becomes academic dishonesty. So it's not any different than when the internet first came out and we moved away from the textbooks or the card catalog. But we had to know that something different was coming. But I remain a big believer in the concept. Artificial intelligence is a product of human intelligence. And the greatest value of a teacher is when we recognize and embrace that role of the human intelligence. We have to be able to help kids figure out and filter out information that they're going to go find anyway. And there's ways that we can teach this, but we are going to embrace this technology for very certain things, but it can brainstorm and it can revise for you. And it's a thinking process, but it is absolutely academic dishonesty. If I just go in and create a term paper on one round of using AI and turn it in, that's not my work. And that's a standard that we're going to continue to uphold.
What do you mean when you say the greatest value of a teacher is when we recognize and embrace and assume the human intelligence role in the quest for academic knowledge? Can you expand on
Yeah.
that?
So if this was strictly a financial decision, we'd be all online. It is way cheaper to do online learning. But here's what we found during the pandemic, that just giving kids content and having them turn stuff in is maybe the worst way to teach people and learn. The teacher has to be able to facilitate learning. They have to ask questions. They have to pose the alternative viewpoint and let kids think for themselves about how they want to answer. They have to provide feedback. They have to be able to say, nope, got a better effort than that. A question that I ask my own kids and would ask my own staff and ask every kid here is, that's your best effort? We're not talking grades here. Is that reflective of your best effort? If it is, I'll accept whatever it is, whatever the outcome. If it's not, then it's my role as a human to say, I've seen enough and I've got enough experience from my interaction with you that you can produce a better effort. Go back and do it again. Let me know how I can help you. And that's the learning process.
One of the things we say is less tech, more human. What does that mean to you?
We just can't turn kids wild and say, hey, go learn this on the internet. I mean, that doesn't work. And one time maybe we thought that's what we were going to do, or we're going to take these worksheets that were really ineffective and we're going to put them online, and then I'm going to have you do it in a fillable PDF and call that learning, right? But bring questions, bring alternative viewpoints, filter, produce, get feedback, produce again, get feedback. We talked about the presentation skills that were in skills line. How do you bring those into life and put them in every presentation? Very simple steps that does your presentation. The presentations we're putting together right now, we use the line in one of your skills line lesson. They talked about, to start a presentation, at the end of this, you will learn. Let the audience know up front, this is what they're going to learn at the end of the presentation. Those are the little key things that your company embeds in their curriculum that allows us to teach off of that.
How do we assess employability or whether a person has developed a foundation of the durable human skills?
Yeah, it's always what somebody wants to ask, right? It wants to figure out is how to assess it. And I think one of the reasons our partnership is so strong is we don't give multiple choice tests. So here's how we assess it right now. We ask the kids, what'd you learn? Tell us a couple skills that you learned. How does it apply in your real life? I go back to my mentorship class that we teach. And these are seniors that have multiple blocks off campus. And we go through all of the things that they've experienced in these mentorship settings over the course of the week. In fact, we're changing our format to incorporate this concept of just talking about our skills, focusing on different skills, talk about how that applies to their workforce. Here's what I've learned, Chris, over the last 16 weeks with this group. Either they're the most creative liars or they're actually going through these experiences to the point where we've got a young lady that's sitting in meetings as a company transitions from one company to the other as they're bought out. She's sitting around listening to all of these conversations. And I said, what's the one thing you took away from this? I can walk into a room with people I don't know and strike up conversations with them based upon these skills. Mission accomplished, right? Those are things we want them to learn. We talk about the concept of presentation. One of our students works for our local government. A big controversy, if you will, was the implementation of food trucks. What does that look like? He had to research, he had to create presentations, and he had to talk through the skills of and prioritizations of what has to happen for local business, for local government, and then the new form of local business. There's a lot that goes into it. And these are the types of sessions and skills I help to foster these conversations that we have. When we talk about what they learn, talk with a kid for 5 minutes about what that setting looked like and some of the things they didn't think of or didn't realize that they would have 18 weeks ago. That's how you measure assessment. And that's how we learn concepts such as adaptability or integrity or time management. That you hear that through the experiences that they have and that they're able to articulate.
What does it mean to you to make the high school diploma worth something?
So the diploma is the expectation. That the standard, however, is entirely different. And Indiana has been on the forefront of making high school relevant. And what I mean high school relevant is not all just the academic knowledge that we're going to acquire, but the focus on both the experience and then the tangible outcome. So, for example, transferable college credits during the normal academic day at no cost to the kids to all economic sectors, not just the four-year universities, to all economic sectors, experiences in manufacturing, IT, and healthcare, just here locally, whether those go to a 4-year, 2-year, or right into the workforce. Either way, they have transferable credits. Extended experiential learning opportunities. The way our kids graduate from high school builds in time for them to have field experiences during the junior and the senior year to learn what they do and more importantly, learn what they don't like. And there's all sorts of studies that we have here of kids that have found both recognition of industry recognized certifications. So if a kid walks out with OSHA, kid walks out with CPR, kid walks out with Amazon certifications, hopefully one day here walks out with an employability certification powered by Skills Line, which says I've gone through and I understand the concept of becoming a desirable applicant. And we use that term specifically because in Indiana, we know that not only are our kids going to apply for stuff throughout their time in high school, but when they get ready to leave us, they're going to apply for one of the three E's, either enrollment, employment, or enlistment. And a lot of our kids are doing multiple. So in a competitive candidate pool, we want our kids to be the most desirable applicants over everybody else. We say here often we're rooting for the home team, which means we're rooting for our kids, not only to have success when they get done with this, but quite frankly, to recruit them back and to come back into this area and have their kids come back to Batesville High School or the Batesville School Corporation.
Why did you choose SkillsLine to support your efforts at your school?
You have a very entrepreneurial mindset. You're willing to accept feedback. In this profession, too oftentimes we get the giants that come in and says, if you implement this program just as we tell you to do it, then you're going to see X, Y, and Z result. And in almost every case that's happened, somewhere along the line, say, we just didn't do it the way we told you to do it. So we're going to train you some more, train you just some more, train you. You let us play around with it. You took us seriously up front and said, hey, we agree with an assessment tool is not the best way to go about it. What do you need from us? Can we pick and choose different things to focus on? Kathy Pease was very influential in helping our teachers because if you think of it from our standpoint of it, as our teachers went through it, we started highlighting areas that we wanted to teach. How can we then marry that up to what's best, what we think is in the best interest of Batesville High School students? We also have our partners with Indigo Education Company that says we're going to use these DISC assessments for kids to understand themselves. And then we're going to tie those results to the lessons we have in Skills Line, all taught by our teaching staff. You're willing to work with us. And that's rare in the education space to have a curriculum partner, entrepreneurial spirit. Oh, by the way, this is the future of educational partnerships is entrepreneurial spirit. Work with us and hopefully provide mutual benefit.
What is the future of education partnerships?
We're going to have small, nimble entrepreneurial partnerships that are going to be competition based. We don't adopt textbooks anymore. And you get in these 6-year partnerships that you can't get out of. Competition only breeds better quality of curriculum material. And people want to be entrepreneurial. Can we get into this? And can we get out of it if we don't like it? If something changes, then our relationship, the nature of our relationship can change. That's okay. But that keeps us both connected to this. That keeps us both invested to the outcome of it. And that is a major shift in education.
What are the skills that you would focus on to get started with SkillsLine?
We focused on confidence, authenticity, hope, decision making, listening. And although communication is a broad topic, developing down what makes effective communication, both written and oral. And so we took from that 5 pieces, what makes an effective presentation. And we have our kids practice it. And we don't even really care what they talk about. But for a 1 minute presentation, can you make great eye contact, have body language, not stare at the vision? And is your visual readable from everybody else? And we're going to look to expand those qualities. That's what we want to focus on.
Why do you start with teachers and SkillsLine professional learning to start?
We've gone through a lot of programming over the years where our teachers are expected to teach something they've never experienced. So why not take them through the experience first?
So, how do you deal with the unknown and how do you bring that to your students?
It's a great question because when we talk about the shift from the fixed mindset to the growth, we are always trying to control the known in this profession, right? And that's what that really prohibits our growth. So we're going to experience it with them. That means me. If I'm leading all of this, I've got to go through all this. I've got to be the one out front. I got to be teaching someone. I'm not asking anybody to do anything here that I'm not. And if I think as the building leader, if this is aligns with my vision and it does, then I need to be the example. People will see me change. People will see me embrace this concept. And that doesn't mean everybody. I don't have everybody here that's saying this is the best part of what we do. In fact, there's some people resistant to it, and that's okay. But this growth mindset means I don't know where this is going, but I know this is not going away.
How does SkillsLine fit into what you do to
It fits very much within the concept of trying to bring relevancy to high school, right? In a way that's not always confined by a grade. We don't grade these things, which is a big mindset shift too. But we talk about them, and the experience itself has to be enough. You cannot master these skills. I'm convinced that because they evolve in different times. But if our kids understand this from 16 to 18, what these skills that Skills Life puts within their micro lessons, and I have an identification of them, I have an understanding of them, they're going to change again from 18 to 32. And then they're going to change again from the 40s and down the line. But if I have an awareness of it and I understand what they mean and how they apply to me and how I operate best with them, then I'm at an advantage over all my peers.
I really appreciate your time today, Andy.
Yeah.
I think you were the one that led a lot of our innovation in a sense. Like we're all for it, but we can't do it without somebody on the ground that wants to innovate. So just as an aside, I want to say thanks.
welcome.
Actually, let me ask you one
Yeah.
more question. What's your advice to a new teacher or a principal who wants to get started teaching employability skills?
I just use the creative process learned in Skills Line. And this process that was from a 1968 NASA study that I learned through your program is changing how we do a lot of stuff around here. We're going to define what we want to do first. We're going to think about it. Then we're going to try it out and then we're going to get feedback and we're going to fail at it for a while. But what else at the expense of what are we trying these processes? If we want our kids to truly have an opportunity to compete in the professional world, whatever that means, then we have got to do more than simply teach from the text, teach the standardized testing. And we've got to model our willingness to grow, adapt, communicate effectively. We've got to be the ones that mimic that. And so if we want to create the most desirable applicants, and we want our kids to be the most desirable applicants, we got to come right alongside with them and learn just as they do.
Okay. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave us here today? Thanks for your time.
Chris, this has just been a phenomenon. It's a phrase I think goes back to the concept of how do you implement this? The first thing you're just got to start it. We've moved from theory to practice. I don't know that we'll ever get to mastery. I do know this, that we'll continue to evolve with what makes sense. We'll ask our kids. And just because we ask them doesn't mean that we're going to take every suggestion they ever have. Because as you can imagine, sometimes they don't feel like doing it. And so one of my mentors, Jim Rome, who's at 58, started the reinvention project, right? It's like, how do I remain relevant at 58? uses the quote of standards over feelings, right? Sometimes we don't feel like doing this stuff, but the standard is we're going to keep learning, right? We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep innovating. So we've got to demonstrate that so they can mimic it, try it, make suggestions, take feedback, make revisions. As I say to our kids and our staff a lot, I don't know where this is going, but it's not going away. And so we're just going to keep getting better at it.
That's awesome to hear. I agree with you. It's sometimes in this world, as we are faced with a lot of the unknown and there's constant change and disruption, it gets tiring, but you can't give up. And humans are known to be able to adapt to new environments. And that's a new environment that we're facing.
And we may not change, Chris, the way school is structured. We might not. We may not ever get away from the 7 hours that we're here and come into a location for 185 days or whatever that is. But we can change the focus. And so we are gonna acquire academic knowledge. We're not gonna move away from that. But when our kids leave here with developed skills and they have attributes such as confidence and hope and authenticity, they understand what those things are and they know how to apply them, and that they understand in situations that when they're in these environments, they operate really well with, and they don't require a lot of energy. But when I get in these other environments, maybe I'm not as comfortable. And so I've got the skills and I understand what failure looks like and what it means to be resilient. Might take me some more energy and some more preparation, but I can thrive in that environment too. Boy, how many things are on the other side of hard, right? And so that's a hard process to understand. But if we practice it enough, when that a kid faces it, they're 24, 25 years old. I never want them to graduate from Batesville High School and be surprised what the professional world might look like. That'd be a win for us.